Story 1. The Crow is dramatic and gothic with some silly elements, but I absolutely loved that movie and still do. It is silly and goofy, and I do not want to see the new one because it will make me sad. Story 2. Hook. Critics criticized it, and many people I have worked with said it was terrible, but it did not take a stranglehold on my childhood. I had the toys, the sword, and I would dream about living in the movie. It is a little slow in the beginning, the middle part declines for 10 minutes, then the end really comes back strongly. Also, the sets are excellent. Story 3. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter delivered everything it promised. Story 4. Hackers. If you go into it looking for realistic depictions of hacking, you are missing the point. It is just a fun movie that does not take itself seriously. Story 5. Meet Joe Black is dreamy and deep, and Brad Pitt as Death is iconic. I will never understand the hate it receives. Story 6. Dogma is absolutely perfect in every way. It is excellent satire, works as a supernatural thriller, and as a silly comedy. If I could change one thing, I would swap Linda Fiorentino and Janine Garofalo's roles. Story 7. Waterworld. I love the concept of cruising the oceans on a catamaran, scavenging for junk. Story 8. Sahara. I have admittedly never read the book, but it is a fun movie with a lot of adventure, laughs, and impressive set pieces. It looks like the whole cast is having a good time. Story 9. What is with all the top comments naming movies that are widely considered great? Some examples I have seen are Interstellar, Anchorman, Scott Pilgrim, and The Matrix. If someone mentioned Godzilla from 1997, that would align with the question asked. It is mostly considered a bad film, but some people, including myself, watched it as kids and really liked it, flaws and all. Story 10. Sucker Punch had an amazing concept. Don't get me wrong, the story was a bit generic when it moved to the real-world scenes, but the alternate scenes were really good. Story 11. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Edgar Wright directed an outstanding film. The cast is exceptionally talented, and for movie enthusiasts, there are 3 separate commentary tracks. The movie sometimes receives criticism for the relationship dynamics and how certain types of people connect with particular character archetypes. It remains a very fun and visually appealing film. Story 12. Anyone who does not appreciate Joe Dirt cannot be a friend of mine. Story 13. A Knight's Tale, Heath Ledger's second-best film, is one of my favorite movies of all time, including Gladiator. Story 14. Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 3. It is campy, it is dated, it has not aged well in almost any aspect, but that movie is top-tier entertainment. Shop smart. Shop smart. Story 15. Paul, the Seth Rogen alien movie. I love everything about it, especially the cast. Story 16. Everyone criticizes Love Actually, but I sincerely enjoy that movie. Story 17. The Three Amigos. Critics disliked it. Roger Ebert criticized it on television in front of Chevy Chase. Many people dislike it because it stars Chevy Chase. It generally receives average reviews. Honestly, I think it is one of the funniest movies ever made. It is very quotable. Story 18. You've Got Mail. Now that it is older, people may write it off at first glance as a chick flick or just another romantic comedy, but it is a solid movie with a stellar cast, an amazing soundtrack, and great direction. Story 19. Sucker Punch. Loved the visuals and the music along with a harsh storyline. Story 20. Tron. Legacy. As someone whose dad was never there and only ever cared about himself, who is now dying, this movie hits me in many ways. Story 21. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I know it's old and a cheesy movie. However, I appreciate that they are clowns doing what we love about clowns. They perform puppet shows that eat people, create balloon animals that sniff out humans, throw acid pies in faces, make cotton candy out of blood, and have popcorn creatures. I appreciate that they kept it close to being real clowns, although we know they are from space. It's not just a serial killer who grabs a clown mask. Story 22. RoboCop, 1987, and RoboCop 2, 1990, are underrated action films with moments of deep and emotional themes about grappling with identity and purpose. Also, Red Foreman as the villain is always impressive. Fun fact: my dad was working in downtown Houston when they filmed RoboCop 2, and was unintentionally a background extra during the final fight scene when the evil robot finds its way onto the streets. He was just leaving the office after a long night of work and noticed a large crowd, so he decided to look. Every time the movie cuts to a few seconds of the crowd and reporters, I can always spot my dad in the shot. Story 23. Arrival is my favorite of all time. I know that it is widely regarded as being really good, but I know a lot of people who say it is boring. Personally, I think anyone who does not find the premise of learning to talk to aliens interesting must be a fundamentally boring person. Story 24. Hardcore Henry. The silliest action film ever, but one of the most fun. Story 25. As above, so below. Some people think it is a trashy movie just because they do not like found footage films. Story 26. Crossroads with Britney Spears, Zoe Saldana, and Taryn Manning. I thought it was a cute movie about friendship and self-discovery. I loved Kim Cattrall as her estranged mom and Dan Aykroyd as her dad. Justin Long's nerdy scenes were funny. I don't understand why it was so critically panned. Story 27. Starship Troopers. Highlander and the sequels. Song of the South. I'm Black. Saw it in the theater in the 1970s. Had to be walked outside because I was so worried Burr Rabbit wasn't going to make it. X-Men, loved all of them. Black Adam, Aldous Hodge, nothing further. Chicken Little. Hitman is a masterpiece. Star Trek Insurrection and Star Trek Nemesis are good movies. Story 28. Grease 2 is a fun musical, better than the original. Story 29. Napoleon Dynamite is supposedly the most divisive film ever offered on Netflix. They even called improving their recommendations algorithm the Napoleon Dynamite problem because it was hard to predict if someone would like it or not. I think it is brilliant and one of the more original comedies ever made. Story 30. Cloud Atlas was a masterpiece we are not worthy of as a species. That is the true truth. Story 31. The Mothman Prophecies and Fallen are the scariest movies as far as I am concerned. Story 32. Hook has a great message, solid child acting, and Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman are outstanding in their roles. The score by John Williams is flawless. Story 33. Terminator Dark Fate. It is not great, but people talk like it is a blight against humanity without explaining what is so bad about it. When explanations are given, they usually focus on the lead being a strong woman and label it as woke. Have you seen Terminator 2? The Terminator franchise has always centered on strong women. Again, it is not great, but it is fine. I will take it over the Christian Bale one any day. Story 34. Napoleon Dynamite. It is excellent, and I do not care what anyone says. Story 35. Independence Day. Love it to bits. They should have included one more line explaining that all our computers are based on theirs, but otherwise it is well written. The action and design are incredible. It is oddly inclusive for the time it came out, with the main heroes being a black man and a Jewish man on this planet. I hope they never ruin it with an unnecessary sequel. Story 36. Avatar with the Blue People. Even after an instructor of mine called it Space Pocahontas, it is still one of my all-time favorites for how beautiful and completely yet comfortably otherworldly it is. Story 37. Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers. I was hooked as a child. I am still hooked at 25 years old. Male. This is really great. Story 38. Quest for Camelot. Garrett was my very first crush, so I am biased, but the soundtrack is excellent. Apart from the comedy Psychic Dragons, I honestly think it is a really solid animated movie. Story 39. Cloverfield Paradox. It is so hated, but I have always loved how ridiculous it is. Story 40. Batman Forever. The Batmobile, cinematography, costumes, and direction. It is a fond childhood film. Story 41. Prometheus. I thought the storyline was great. I understand how alien purists would disagree, but I thought it was an excellent addition to the series. Story 42. Transformer 2007. It's just fun, and for the budget and the time it was made, the computer-generated imagery is beautiful. That scene of Optimus Prime transforming on the highway is perfect. Star Trek V. This is my favorite. I know it's bad, but it's so corny it slides to endearing movie. It's dumb, but I like it. Thor, Love and Thunder, we support Taika Waititi in this house. Like the others, it's just a fun movie that I enjoy watching. Mortal Kombat 2021. I know it's not really good, but it's stupid and fun. I feel like someone wrote a treatment where Sonya was the main character, but an executive decided against it. I try to imagine the alternate history where Sonya gets her day. Also, the fights with Scorpion and Sub-Zero are fantastic. In summary, some of the movies I like are solely because they are fun to watch, not because they are critically acclaimed. Story 43, Cat in the Hat. It is my childhood weird, uncanny, gooey nightmare with special effects that have aged strangely well. Story 44, Freddy Got Fingered. Many of the lines are pure gold. I dislike when I mention that and someone only quotes the daddy, "Would you like some sausage?" part. Story 45. I don't think it gets much hate, maybe just overlooked at times, but to me Walk Hard is the funniest movie I have ever seen. Story 46. Kill Bill, both volumes. Blazing Saddles. So it's 3 movies, sue me. Story 47. House of 1000 Corpses. An absolute classic in terms of B-grade horror. Story 48. Space Jam. A true nostalgia movie for me. So 1990s, it's almost a time machine. One of my favorite films of all time. Story 49. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is corny, but I loved it, and it still holds a special place in my heart. Story 50. Alita. Battle Angel is a super cool movie. I would love to see sequels. Story 51. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is a great movie, and nobody will change my mind. Story 52. I recently discovered how awesome Donnie Darko is, director's cut of course. Story 53. Galaxy Quest was much better than I expected. I anticipated a cheesy parody, but it stands on its own as a great movie. Story 54. Forrest Gump is magical then, and it is magical now. It is a true modern classic and a fantastic film. It is not very realistic, but that is why it is great. Story 55. Enemy Mine. Louis Gossett Jr. and Dennis Quaid. It is a testament to the triumph of the Drac spirit over adversity. Story 56. American Beauty. The film contains profound truths and is the most honest representation of the male existential condition in the modern heterosexual dynamic ever made. It is a truly existential film that, fundamentally, is about authenticity and how people react when men start to live authentically. The fact that it upsets many people and becomes even more provocative as the years go by is itself incredibly revealing. Story 57. Spider-Man 3. I loved that film as a kid. I still love it now as a 25-year-old. Story 58. Up in the Air. More than a typical romantic comedy. A real picture of the world during the 2008 recession. Story 59. The Fifth Element. Bruce Willis driving a hypertaxi is fun and futuristic, and that is just the beginning. Story 60. The Last Jedi. Although I am kind of tired of defending it at this point, I do not think I will change my mind. Story 61. Six String Samurai. I know it is not great, but every time I watch it I am surprised by how much fun I am having. Also, Red Elvises is the best band ever. Story 62. Hudson Hawk is a fun adventure movie that was incorrectly marketed as the next Die Hard. Story 63. Personally, it is Stargate and all the truth it represents. Story 64. The extended version of the 3 Hobbit movies. Story 65. Escape from Los Angeles is one of John Carpenter's best movies. The special effects were disappointing, but the rest of the film is a clever action satire and an entertaining movie. It is genuinely superior to the first movie in almost every way. Story 66. It is where my username is from. MacGruber. It is the greatest comedy I have ever seen. If you do not like it, you need to watch it again. If you still do not like it, we are clearly not going to be friends. Story 67. Spider-Man 3 was brilliant. That dance scene was very important. Story 68. The Last Jedi. The first time I saw it, I had no idea what I thought and needed to see it a second time. Story 69. Taken. People already like this movie a lot, but I like it to the point of ranking it among the best films ever created. Story 70. I feel like a lot of Kevin Costner movies get unnecessary hate. Waterworld is such a fun movie. Also, I still consider this year's Horizon to be 2024's best movie and the best Western movie, besides Django, of the last decade. I got the chance to see it in the cinema, which was a great experience. I have yet to see the second one. Story 71. Plunkett and Maclean. Great lineup and soundtrack, but it failed at the box office. Story 72. Freddy Got Fingered. It made me laugh uncontrollably, and I still quote it with a friend. Daddy, would you like a sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages? Jules, Betty, Jules. He's a child molester. I don't see two LeBrons, Freddy. Story 73. I liked Popeye with Robin Williams. From what I understand, the film is not considered very good, but I loved it as a kid. Story 74. Star Wars Episode 1, Episode 2, and Episode 3. The Clone Wars era is peak Star Wars to me. Story 75. All of the Fast and Furious movies. You do not have to like all of them, but some people do. I understand that 10 movies, soon to be 11 with X Part 2, might seem excessive, but no one says you have to watch all of them. You can choose which ones you like and stick to those. I personally think that, aside from the saving the world type stories, adding more characters and lore is realistic because it is not like people just appear out of nowhere. Believe it or not, everyone has their own lives and had them before you met them. Story 76. I love the movie The Postman. I do not understand why it receives so much criticism. Story 77. The People Under the Stairs and the Five Heartbeats. Honorable mention. The Last Dragon. Story 78. 2012. The plot is stupid, the acting is mediocre, but I love the over-the-top nature of it. Story 79. They Live. John Carpenter fans will tell you The Thing is the superior movie, but They Live makes me smile the whole time. Story 80. Most Marvel movies except the first Iron Man are top 5 for me. Story 81. Fight Club. I still feel this is the best movie ever made. Story 82. Batman vs. Superman. I do not care what anyone says about it. I will love that movie until the day I die. Story 83. Rudy. I know many people say the man is unpleasant in real life, but it is the only movie that makes me cry every time I watch it. Story 84. Watchmen, using Dr. Manhattan as the unifying threat instead of the squid, works better and makes more sense. Story 85. Waterworld. It is incredible. It is just Mad Max on the ocean. Story 86. Tenet. And if you don't like it, it's just because you don't understand it. Story 87. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen is strange, outlandish, and over the top in a bizarre way. It reminds me of Big Fish in that way. Story 88. Hook. I was a child and loved it. Apparently, no adults did. Story 89. Wild Wild West. Not sure how I will defend this, but I love it. Story 90. Red Dawn, the original, of course. Not nearly the enthusiastic exercise in nationalism that it is often dismissed as. Story 91. Movie 43. I'm not saying it is amazing, but to say it is not funny at all is ridiculous. It is childish and stupid 100%, but a few of the skits are very funny. Story 92. Temple of Doom. While it lacked National Socialist German Workers' Party members, it was much truer to the pulp adventure vibe of Raiders of the Lost Ark than the third one was. That opening scene was dynamite. Anything goes. Story 93. A significant portion of Eli Roth films, particularly Hostel, Hostel Part 2, Cabin Fever, and The Green Inferno. Eli Roth clearly has much fun making his films, allowing a dark sense of humor to creep into his grotesqueries. It is honestly a joy to watch, despite being very gross. Story 94. Not another teen movie. It is often grouped with the lazy scary movie cash-ins of the 2000s, but it is sincerely one of the funniest movies I have ever seen. It critiques many films from that era in the same way people critique those films today. Story 95. The Nightmare Before Christmas, Tangled, Corpse Bride, the Disney movie The Hunchback of Notre Dame, such a masterpiece, one of the darkest Disney movies, but so good. The Monster High movies, and the 2023 Disney movie Haunted Mansion. Story 96. Watchmen. It is impossible to judge this movie without comparing it to the source material, which is adapted mostly faithfully. This is the movie Zack Snyder was meant to make because he could focus on his style without interfering with his own dialogue and story. The movie only has 3 hours to introduce many characters, but through flashbacks and dialogue, they all become relatable and engaging, even though half of them are unlikable sociopaths. If there were no source, I would call it a masterpiece. Overall, it may be a mostly great adaptation of a masterpiece comic. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.